almost as good as monkeys, up to a couple of minutes. Okay, so that's the correct answer. Was this a hard exam, by the way? You guys think it's tough? The one that I'll give you is comparably mixed, I guess. So what was the last question? Did I skip ahead too much here? Hippocampal lesions, in rats reliably disrupt performance of tasks that involve memory for Pavlovian instrumental conditioning, time, objects. Did it disrupt when we did hippocampal lesions? Did it disrupt object memory in the rats? Remember when those series of experiments that went through and delineated the role of the hippocampus or the rhinal cortex? It was the rhinal cortex that gave damage to the rhinal cortex gave problems with objects. But hippocampal lesions themselves actually involve memory for spatial location more than object recognition. So some hippocampal neurons, and this is basically, I mean, if you got this question, you know kind of what this question is. Some hippocampal neurons become active only when a subject is, well, remembering, forgetting, thinking, eating. The correct answer is C, in particular places. They're known as place cells or place neurons because they code for spatial location or orientation. Real. And a related question about hippocampal function is that food caching species of birds, these are ones that hide their food in little in areas where they'll put quite a bit of food in one location. Food caching species of birds tend to have actually larger hippocampi, which is plural for hippocampus, than non-food caching species. So they're actually have larger, not smaller, and maybe more complex, but the correct term here is actually have larger hippocampus. Long-term potentiation is usually induced by intense stimulation of motor neurons? No. It's actually stimulated by neurons that are coming into the hippocampus from the perforant path, and they cannot, it says cannot be induced by electrical stimulation. That's obviously wrong. That's what long-term potentiation is induced by. C has been most commonly studied in several different neural circuits in the hippocampus. That's actually correct. D is cannot be studied in living animals. That's wrong. And E is not associated with changes, and this was a typo, changes in synaptic transmission. But C is the correct answer here. So most of the bodies, so this is based on our kind of last lecture, most of the body's energy reserves are stored in the form of, remember that picture where there was a little bit of glycogen, a little bit of protein, and most of the body was actually, in terms of energy reserves, was in the form of fat. You can reduce. So, I mean, all of these are storage forms except for alcohol. And glucose is really not a storage form. So glycogen, protein, and adipose are storage forms. Alcohol and glucose are not. Alcohol is not usually significant in the bloodstream. Although we do have enzymes for degrading it in the liver. So sometimes alcohol is produced by fermentation of carbohydrate in the colon. So, 26, there are blank phases of energy metabolism. You guys remember? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15, 14, 15. I got 2, 5, 3, 14, and 15. What is it? 3, that's correct. So do you remember what they are? They're all in the next question. There is the cephalic phase when we're thinking about food, smelling it. There is the absorptive phase when we're actually eating the food and it starts to be digested and absorbed into the gut from a gastrointestinal tract into the bloodstream, and the fasting phase when we have emptied the gut, no more food is moving, no more nutrients are moving from the gut into the bloodstream, and we start to have to use our stored nutrients that were in the form of fat or glycogen or also protein. So the phases, which phase of energy metabolism is triggered by the sight, odor, and taste of food, or just thinking about eating. So these are the 3 phases. Dynamic phase and static phase are with reference to the ventromedial hypothalamic hyperphagic rat. The dynamic phase is when he's eating excessively and gaining weight at a very high rate, and the static phase is when he kind of levels off, although the rat that was in that video I showed you, his body weight never leveled off. We just kept feeding him cafeteria kind of food, and he just kept on eating excessively for the entire time until he died. He just, well, you saw how big he was. Normally rats don't get that big, but if you feed them goodies like chocolate chip cookies, rat porridge, and cat food and monkey food and everything good, like Fat Albert, he just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, the correct answer, the metabolic breakdown and conversion of, oh no, let's go back to the right question. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. I must be tired. Which phase of energy metabolism is triggered by sight, odor, and taste of food? What's that? Cephalic phase, the head phase, yeah. Basically, yeah, the psychological phase of food intake. Metabolic breakdown and conversion of proteins to make glucose is called glucogenesis, glucosis, cephalic phase, gluconeogenesis, or glucagon. It's got to do with something with gluco in it. So, do we know what it is? Gluconeogenesis. The breakdown, metabolic breakdown and conversion of proteins to make glucose is called gluconeogenesis. It's actually making glucose from non-glucose stuff, so it's called gluconeogenesis. Most people attribute hunger to high levels of insulin, high levels of glucagon, an energy deficit, mealtime, or set points. What do you?
Energy deficit?
Yes, right. You had this, I think before you took this course, you had this idea that, oh, my body's running low, I better go and have something to eat. But that's kind of it's only true in a very short-term way, and most of us are never in any, especially in this society, very few of us are in any state of profound energy deficit, unless you are anorectic, suffer from anorexia nervosa or bulimia, and then you end up with some profound energy deficits, and even in the presence of profound hunger, people with these problems don't eat sufficiently to maintain a healthy, stable body weight. And I wish we could have gotten to that. But if anybody wants to talk about that, Sarah's an expert on anorexia and bulimia. She's working on some animal models, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of that. And,